Call the Ag Planning and Tourism Community Development Committee to order. And need a motion to accept the minutes from the January 24th meeting. Jay, Dave, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Tourism review and 2023 budget presentation from Black Dog. You guys are up.
Ready? All right. Does anybody know what the volume plays on this?
Guess we'll find out.
All right. Good enough screen share. Awesome. Yeah. All right, cool. We're going to start with the video. It's a wrap up of last year. I think we did this on Zoom last year, but it wasn't quite as effective with no sound. So we'll give it a shot now.
FYI, this is a compilation of a variety of videos that were done.
On the ladder now. So that was just a quick video recap of a lot of the video and photography that was shot last year. That was one of the major focal points of utilizing the ARPA funds, was to be able to generate that media and to utilize it in our marketing.
So Jesse, before you go further, why don't you guys reintroduce yourselves to everybody?
Oh, sorry.
I'm Mike Wood. I'm born and raised in Argyle, so this is like a perfect dream job for me to be able to market all the amazing things that we have in the county. I've been doing this about 2 years, I think now, kind of working with Laura and working with Jesse and the crew. So can't be happier to be doing what I'm doing.
Thank you. My name is Jesse Tyree from Black Dog, and we originally received this contract about 4 or 5 years ago. We were lucky enough to get it re-implemented last year, and I lead a lot of the creative direction as well as the project management, but Chris Coughlin is really the detail-oriented guy on a lot of these actions.
And I'm Chris Coughlin, as you mentioned, so I do a lot with obviously Mike, Jesse, Alexis from our team in terms of project management, lining up content to be created. Like you said, I've been working at Black Dog for actually 8 years, and since we first received this contract, and we got it for last year. So I will share or show this presentation here.
So what we have here is similar to the review that we did last year, and we want to start by going through a 2022 year in review, provide some facts and stats, and then move on to our plan for this year and how we're going to utilize the funds.
So yeah, so like I said, we'll start with 2022 and then get into moving forward in plans. So really as a recap, with the ARPA funding as well as the base budget from last year and going into this year, we really focused on collecting a lot of visual assets, photo and video, launching new initiatives such as the trails and actually promoting those, as well as continuing those core initiatives that we've been working on. Obviously, building the photo and video library is really important, something that can be used for years to come. Promoting these trails or industry clusters, cheese, craft beverage, arts, history, antiques, all those sorts of things. So we can really target people based on specific interests and activities that they want to partake in. We did a lot more with STR owners and operators. So we held an event at Salem Artworks, and that was very successful. They seemed to be very appreciative of support from the county and really wanted to look to do more. And some of the things we did, for example, we created a host binder. So anyone that stayed in an Airbnb, VRBO, a lot of times you'll have a binder that has house rules, things to do. So we really wanted to provide these assets to those owners and operators So they could put them in the house. So if a guest shows up in Washington County, they could say, okay, these are the things to do near me. Scan a QR code, view events in the area going on that weekend. Just really trying to improve their guest experience and really incentivize them to get out, spend in the county, explore the county.
And to that, Chris, one of the notable points is we were able to get sort of a buy-in or a relationship going with Airbnb, where they were able to share information about this event to those hosts that are signed up to receive marketing information.
I think they recognize the value of we're trying to make them more successful. They can help us be more successful, raise each other together. So pretty well. We're hopeful and moving forward, we can continue to develop that relationship with them.
Moving down this list also, we started to populate the County Tourism YouTube page with a lot of video content that was created, as well as run video ads on YouTube. Obviously, that's a little more unique of an audience than say Facebook or Instagram. We want to make sure that we're staying up to date and using as many channels as possible and not just sticking with Facebook because that's what we've always done type mentality. We also printed and distributed visitors guides. So there are about 2,473 distributed directly. So those would be people that requested them through the county tourism website. We also partnered with the Haunted History Trail, the New York State level trail. So people were able to go on there and say, all right, these are sites and locations throughout the county that are haunted. There might be tours, those sorts of things, but also request visitor guides from the county to learn what more there is to do. So that was actually a great feeder of getting the visitor guides out to individuals.
And those are the direct requests from people who've seen advertising or marketing requesting information about the county, and they were local, national, and a few international requests as well.
And then we also worked with Adirondack brochure distributors to actually distribute them throughout visitor centers, anywhere that there's really rat card placements throughout call it the Lake George, Capital, and Saratoga region. So like Capital region consists of Albany, Schenectady, Troy, Saratoga, and then the Lake George region, I believe, went all the way up to about Ticonderoga. So we were able to hit, a pretty good section along called that Northway corridor, as well as east and west a little bit off of that. And then these are a few of the partners that we worked with. So as I just mentioned, the Haunted History Trail of New York State, Black Mountain Visuals has been doing a lot of video work, so we've been working with them. Mike's been coordinating with a lot of the businesses as well as Black Mountain to, create those video shoots, travel plans, really get out there and make sure that we're getting a lot of assets that are needed. And then we worked quite a bit with New York, Vermont media, placing print and digital ads in the region. So targeting adjacent areas to Washington County through a variety of different, like I said, print publications, whether it's people at the Saratoga Fair, Washington County Fair, their general newsletters that go out in the Lakes Region Free Press, as well as display advertising, emails, those sorts of things through their network. And we wanted to get into just some top line called analytics of some of the digital channels. Obviously, the website's one of the most used tools. We want to get people there. They can find things to do, events, all of those sorts of good stuff. And again, this year we saw solid growth year over year, like we have each year, in terms of the number of users as well as page views. We do want to point out that there was a little bit of extra media purchasing from the ARPA funds. So as you'll see when we get into the 2023 plan and moving forward, we wanted to make some changes in terms of focusing on organic content, the website, because we acknowledge that that may not be there all the time, but we want to try to continue to build up the ways people are getting to the site. The top locations of visitors. So I believe someone had a question last year about these locations, and we looked at the way Google tracks these. These are considered sort of like a medium market. So Saratoga, Warren, Washington County would be a part of the Albany, Schenectady, Troy, or called the Capital Region market. New York City was obviously second in terms of the number of visitors in that area. And then there's about 17% where you can't track those people. They may have opted out of being tracked. It's never perfect, so you can't always get every single person. And then you can see Connecticut as well as Boston/Manchester, which also includes quite a bit of Vermont there. So Vermont, for example, could be part of Albany, Schenectady, Troy, call it that, western edge Rutland, Bennington, Addison County. Whereas maybe farther out, obviously, in Massachusetts would be in Boston and Manchester. So if anyone has more questions on that, we can actually pull like a little map out of Google Analytics and share that, so you can kind of see the exact boundaries of where those are.
And these locations of the website visitors align very much with some of the campaigns we did, as well as the placements that Chris just referenced in terms of NYBT or some of the other, direct advertising.
And then the referral traffic. So this is what channels did people go to before they went to the website. So social media was obviously one of the biggest. There's a lot of social content, ads, those sorts of things. Organic search. So typing in, events near me this weekend, typing in places to go apple picking in, September, October, those sorts of things. Washington County Tourism website shows up. They click on the website, and that's what equates to an organic search. 16% would be people that are typing in the website directly. Primarily, I would guess that they either see it on a piece of a rack card, a table tent, whatever it is, and they type it in and go there, or they've been there before. 3.4% other is again something that they say they can't track or how someone got there. 2.4% would be referral traffic, so they could come from I Love New York's website. They saw a business that was listed and now they're on the Washington County website. And paid search, which really was only YouTube campaigns, which we started this year, very small percentage. But again, if someone's on YouTube, they're probably there looking for a specific video and they're seeing our ad, not clicking away before they actually get to what they were looking to view. But just something we'll continue to track as we're running this. The most visited web pages. This is quite similar actually at the top to what we saw last year. Homepage, that's usually always the most visited page of any website. The events page, so obviously people are looking at what can they do this weekend or a specific date. Flannel Fall Crawl, that was up there as a pretty big push for that this year. And then the two trails there, Cheese and Antiques actually, which, like I said, they were launched and we did some promotion of those this year. So it's nice to see some of those start to climb, as well as a blog post, which was really just organically found. So there wasn't really an ad campaign or anything for an individual blog. So it's nice to actually see some of those start to climb up into the top 10. Lodging or places to stay, that I believe is new to the top 8 here from last year. And same with shopping. I know we did a little bit of a shop local, try to come into Washington County, find handcrafted goods, artisan made goods, whatever it may be. So we can see that some of these things are starting to pop into the most visited pages from campus.
Yeah, we have, as you're probably aware, we started to have more breweries pop up. Is that in the shopping category, or you just don't trail that at all?
So we have a craft beverage trail as well. So I would say that's probably the primary home for that content.
Gotcha. Okay, I know you have one.
But I think a reflection of this is the homepage is obviously the first place that somebody would enter. Events are things that we've noticed are very strong, what people are naturally searching for to do. And then 3, 4, and 5 are really the results of paid traffic to create exposure to get people to see and know about those trails. Where 6, like Chris just said, is organic. And I believe that 7 is due to the changing landscape of people coming here, seeing this, understanding where would they stay. And shopping, to me, it could be an effort for this year. It's difficult to be able to reflect. There's no direct shopping on the site because of a lot of barriers, we would say, inside of government and things like that. So we're framing that as a place to go through those craft beverage campaigns to spend money.
Gotcha.
Is Airbnb on the lodging, or is that referring to, or you just figure they're gonna go to the Airbnb sites anyways?
So,
Is it?
Yeah, so there are some short-term rentals on there at the event we did in Salem. That was something we encourage a lot of them to, is to get listed on the website, set up, a unique website URL that could list out to or link out to your because really we're trying to lean on a lot of those.
Well, that's why I was wondering, you were trying to get a.
yeah, we really want to be able to feature those, but I guess as an operator of those STRs, you do want people to go to your Airbnb page because that's where they'll make the booking directly. But this people are able to see all of them, understand them, how unique they are without being in like a sales mode. Another factor in that is with the STR work, there's also a focus on Airbnb experiences. So not just a place to stay, but maybe like Dorothy's family farm, the goat farm, she has a place to stay, or her neighbor has a place to stay, but she operates, a 2-hour, whatever is goat petting thing. And that's an experience. So I think bringing some of those other, things that people can do into this realm would be really helpful.
And we just have some testimonials sprinkled in here, from people that want to make updates to their listings. So Serena here was very happy of the updates that were made. Just calling out a few of these.
One of the things about the website is all of the information relies on the quality and the amount of detail on it. So when we originally started to database every business in the area and then get businesses to contribute, critique their information, not everybody was participating, right? So this year we've made much more of a direct effort to say, your business is listed here. Is this accurate? Is this the way you want to reflect it? Is this doing what you want it to do? So through those, sending out hundreds of direct emails to the business operators, we're able to get responses, which we've categorized and will be implementing through a new directory and like an itinerary builder. But this is just a result of us reaching out and asking Serena, is this the best representation that you want for yourself on the county?
And that's part of what I do is I go out and see businesses, is I say, hey, the output on the website is only as good as the input to the website. So if you have a pretty, simple listing, no pictures, bad, links to a website, that's not going to help you get much attraction to your business. So as I'm out talking to everybody, I say, hey, make sure that everything's updated. You can send it to us. We're more than happy to update it for you. Pamela's obviously a great source of information. She's always sending information to us. However we can get information to make our website better, it just helps everybody.
Keep going. So here's just some basic Facebook page analytics. So we saw 11.4% growth in terms of followers over the past year. Obviously, it's primarily 64% women, 36% men. Got an age breakdown there. And as you'll see when we go to the Instagram page overview, you'll notice a difference in the ages that are using these channels. And you'll see the same thing on YouTube, which while we're collecting all these video assets is why we want to keep using multiple channels and not just stick to, say, the original 2 that we have.
And I think if you look at this 11% as a smaller number than the, than the increase in the web traffic, the reason is because when we ran these ads and these paid campaigns on Facebook, we push people to the website, to the trail pages, versus having them just gaining followers on the county tourism's Facebook page. And that, again, I think that results into our increase in the email list growth, because if you look, we've had more direct requests for visitor guides than this Facebook page has grown. So we want people to actually take an action to go to the website to learn more, not just really follow a Facebook.
And we just wanted to share a few of the top Facebook posts. And at the bottom, maybe a little small, we can see how many accounts reached these had. And all of these were organic, meaning there wasn't a paid promotion behind these posts. So obviously the first one is sort of event-based in terms of the holiday train coming at a specific date and time. Same thing with Goose Island Potatoes You Pick. And then the Jungle Experience Zoo, which was kind of combined with the Family Fun Guide that was developed. So 15,000, 8,000, about 7,600 accounts reached for each of these organically. So like I said, those are some of the top performers, just to give you guys some insight into what's working well on Facebook. The Instagram page growth, so percentage-wise, that saw quite a bit more growth than Facebook, although there's much more Facebook followers than Instagram right now. So obviously growing the Instagram, I would say, is slightly larger priority than Facebook, just because there's that difference in followers. You can see that it's even more heavily followed by women than men than Facebook was. And then also on the age ranges, it's a little younger if you're to compare those 2 pages, and that 25 to 44, those 2 sections there are predominantly the majority of those users. Back to that YouTube point, a lot of times YouTube will see even a little bit younger than Instagram. So important to make sure that we might be hitting that 18 to 34 range, say on YouTube a little harder as well. And on Instagram, similar thing to Facebook here, a few of the top posts in terms of organic reach and the number of people that saw this. First one was actually Argyle having live music this past holiday season, holiday lighted nights, and then an outdoor photo. A lot of those scenic shots seem to perform quite well on Instagram, regardless if it's attached to an event, business, whatever it is, they seem to do well there. And then email marketing. So we actually saw quite a big jump in subscribers this past year, 5,400 to just over 8,000. So that's people signing up, whether they click the link from social, on the website. If they were on the New York State Haunted History Trail, they could also request to be added to our email list. So those are a few of the primary ways somebody could get on that. Some of the top performing consumer campaigns. Again, we're seeing event-based stuff, Flannel Fall Crawl, holiday events that are happening, and then there's no place like Local for the Holidays was actually focused on getting people to shop locally, shop in Washington County for gifts and things. And then we have the open rate and click rates here for both the business audience as well as consumer audience. You can see the business audience is quite a bit higher. It's a lot smaller of a list, generally posting tips, things that are going on, things business owners will want to know. So obviously, I mean, in my opinion, I see that, I'm like, that's kind of to be expected. But obviously we want to try to keep those up as much as possible. And then we had another quote from Sarah, I believe, like you talked to her,
Yep.
Scotlander Brewery.
Yep, Sarah and her husband Brian, fairly new owners of the Scotlander Brewery, trying to make sure that we connect well with them as a new business in the area. Obviously, Scotlander's been there for a little while now, but as new owners, just trying to make sure that they're aware of all that we can do for them, and know that she can reach out to us for help if need be. So establish a pretty good relationship with them.
Then we wanted to touch on some of the key takeaways, lessons learned, those sorts of things from the past year before we get into the plan moving forward. So we want to really prioritize supporting existing events that are being hosted in the county that may have been around for call it 3, 5, however many years. We had a pretty big push for Flannel Fall Crawl, got a ton of website traffic. People were exposed to the county, looking through, we used an app to track the submissions, and I think we were hoping for a little bit more. So rather than continue to double down in that manner, we say, all right, let's look for those events that are being held every year that are very successful and see how can we support them from a county level outside of just adding them to the calendar or putting a post up. We want to continue to optimize the site listings and directory functionality. So we're actually going through and just about complete with redoing every listing on the website. We're actually working on a sheet now, and then we're going to update the functionality as well so that the directory will appear all brand new and have increased abilities for a user like sharing a listing, building an itinerary, those sorts of things.
The Visit Niagara campaign does this really well. They have all their local businesses that apply to the tourism industry. You can sort through them, where they are, what they do, and then you can also click a button to build your own itinerary for a visit.
And then continuing to support STR owners and operators. Obviously, tons of people go to Airbnb looking for places to stay, things to do, even experiences. So we want to make sure that we're giving them the appropriate amount of attention and supporting them in any way that we can, whether that's events, online groups, additional collateral, or updates to that we need to get to them. Prioritize organic traffic versus paid efforts through SEO and website updates. As I mentioned earlier, we had a little bit more media purchasing this past year due to the ARPA funds and will this year. So we want to get ahead of the ball and make sure that we're focusing on organic this year as well. So when that budget is used up, that we don't see a dip in website traffic. And then one thing we learned was extremely helpful was when we put together the STR event in Salem. I believe it was Laura, you talked with Airbnb, and they were willing to actually communicate and send a message or email out on our behalf to all the STR owners and operators in the county. So we thought that was actually pretty unique and helpful, and we'd like to see, all right, if we're doing another SDR event or developing collateral, some type of support, try to get Airbnb to continue to, help us out in that regard. And then now that we have a lot of photo and video assets, and we'll be continuing that this year, we really want to focus on reels and video content on social media. That's the way a lot of these channels are trending in terms of what they want to see. And now that we have a lot of that content, we can actually really leverage it and use it. Any questions on this?
Guys, I have a question. On the Airbnbs, or the short-term rentals, are we doing anything to touch those that are not affiliated with the Airbnb? I know in Fort Haven, we got probably 79 units, and only about half of them are with Airbnb. So there's a market out there within the county that's not being touched as a result.
Yes.
If that's the case.
You mean another platform like VRBO?
Could be Airbnb, but there's other travel agencies out there that do it as well. Some of the bigger ones that have the airplane, like Experian, whatever you call it, Experian or whatever it is.
We could certainly look to expand the areas, like the platforms, VRBO, direct bookings, et cetera. But Airbnb is the one that has an exclusive relationship with the county where they're collecting the occupancy tax and funding it back in. So we thought that might be a good place to start our conversations in energy, but we could definitely explore other platforms. It's just.
I was going to think to expand on that. It's a good base, but if we can get those others brought into the fold somehow that aren't paying taxes on it, that would maybe.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't think any of our efforts are exclusive to just Airbnb. It's to open to any short-term rental owner. So I think we had a mix at the event.
You did,
We had
yeah,
Sam there, so.
yeah, you did.
Yeah, so Sam, if I can comment as well, I think so far we have elected to emphasize partnering with Airbnb because they have been willing to partner with us and they are actually funding a portion of our tourism budget, whereas VRBO has steadfastly refused to do so. So we have a little bit of a quandary in that we certainly want the local businesses to benefit, but we're being funded primarily by Airbnb. So there's a line we're kind of trying to walk. We're trying to help everybody. But I will say, yes, there's been a bit more of a concentration.
My only thought was maybe there's a way we could help encourage those that are not members of Airbnb to join Airbnb. And then it's a win for everybody.
We actually made it very clear at the STR event that the fact that we were able to hold that was because of Airbnb, not VRBO. So, yeah.
Other questions on this?
Yeah, I mean, from 20 to 21, we doubled in our web hits, which we started with a small number. So you kind of were you expecting us to double again like we did? And what do you think the next year will bring?
I would say I didn't, before looking at that, I didn't expect double items from last year to this year. I do think the higher it goes, the harder it is to keep doubling. So in my opinion, I think just continuing the upward trajectory is what we want to see. Because again, it's possible to double every single year.
And I think
10, 12 straight.
And your strategy, Chris, of utilizing some of those ARPA funds, the reason why it is so large probably is because we were able to spend more advertising dollars to get people to go to the site. As that tapers off through the ARPA funds, Chris has indicated a few times about organic content, and that's content that is on the site that lives on there. So when somebody searches for something, they're seeing the website, not an ad that brings them to the listing. So these increments of adding more organic content should benefit, but you're right, it's not going to double everything.
And that's why I want to plan on that this year while we still have some of that spending. So call it end of this year when that is done, and it's already been kind of worked on and built up. Okay. We have another quote here about I think it was they were featuring the Antiques Trail video, correct? Mike?
Yeah, so that specific video is not quite complete yet, but the shooting for it is. Goliath out in Granville area, really unique location and a barn, set up a nice antique shop there. If you have a chance to stop by, amazing guy. He's just recently moved back from California. Great story, good guy, but very appreciative of, again, the efforts. And again, a new business owner, so trying to show him the love and support, and he was super appreciative of everything we were doing for him.
And this part starts to get into the plan and budget for 2023. We shifted a couple things around on the base budget as well as the ARPA budget, just based on some of those things we've learned over the past year. So this is the top line base budget. 201,500, which is 1,500 extra, but we added that postage line in, which I know Laura, you said was or was not included last year on that, or
We have to make some amendments to the budget after this discussion, but it was added last year, just we didn't add it quite enough.
As people who want visitors guides would want to have them show up, so that's the postage requirement.
The next slide actually goes through a few of the changes to make it easier. So marketing strategy, we wanted to set more quarterly meetings with Laura, as well as a 6-month annual report instead of just doing this. Kind of a similar thing to the analytics, just to show how it's going halfway through the year. We actually dropped that budget by $4,000. Obviously, a lot of Mike's work is dealing with businesses for the videos, the sort of event support plan that we're working on. So a lot of that work actually kind of goes into those buckets as well. So by using that, those sections for that work, we can actually give more flexibility to the base and move this to another base budget. On the website, we decreased this by $1,000. Building out the new directory functionality is actually part of the additional budget, which originally had just an itinerary builder line, but it's kind of an all-in-one type thing. So we're able to accomplish the itinerary builder and the new directory functionality under the additional budget. So we were fine, at least internally, with saying, okay, we feel that dropping this by 1,000 is an okay budget for us. Fees, subscriptions, renewals, decrease this by $75. We usually have a little bit in the budget at the end of each year from this line item that we either use for media purchasing or other needs. The editorial content, we really want to start to focus on mainly submitting articles to other websites to get backlinks, so get more traffic to the Washington County website. An example will be Discover Upstate New York. They're a website that focuses on a lot of different towns and regions all across upstate New York. We have the opportunity to link out to our blogs as well as submit blogs, those sorts of things to their website. So we want to do a little bit more of that. Same budget for this section, but that's just sort of a new piece of that. On the social media, we want to increase organic posts slightly on Facebook and Instagram. Drop the Facebook and Instagram ads, the number of them per month, down a little bit as we've slowly introduced YouTube and Hulu ads with the video content that we have. And we really wanted to focus on creating Reels and potentially TikTok content with the video this year now that we have those assets. So that's why there's an increase there on that budget. And then the social media purchasing, the spending for the actual ad buys seem to vary quite a bit month to month. So we just wanted to level that off and make sure that's sort of a even 2,000 each month. The emails, we previously had $8,000 in the budget and we dropped that to 6,000. That was another one where towards the end of the year, we would seem to have a little bit more emails. We'd also use some of that budget for other areas that needed it. So this will still allow us to do 30 total emails throughout the year. This comes out to about 2.5 per month. Then we have the postage line item, which is completely new for getting the visitors guides out to you, as well as if there were rat cards that need to be shipped to any of those items. Any questions on these changes, updates? And then this is the additional budget, the amount remaining, as well as the different sections that are within that. A lot of this is the same. There are some updates again here, which I'll go through on the next page. So first of all, on the events, as opposed to trying to create a new event each season and promote that, to really focus on supporting the events that are happening in the county through, call it a support plan, listing qualifications. If you want the county to work with you or partner with you, whatever that legal term is that we come to, you have to meet these requirements, and then we'll do more than add you to the calendar and post an organic poster story. Working with the fairgrounds also on a Sea Taste Explore Tourism Showcase event. And we've been working on that pretty much, last few weeks, chatting with Rebecca from the fairgrounds there as well. So an event that features Washington County businesses strictly, gets consumers in there to see, the types of products, activities, things that are sold and can be done here, as well as have, one suggestion when we were talking through some calls was having some business programming, if it allows for a schedule, for the people that are attending it, so they try to get some value as well. So it's a little business as well as consumer focus. And then also the flannel fall crawl, sort of limiting the spend and the effort on this since we developed a lot of assets over the last few years. Still putting it out there, but really leaning on what we've created already. And then I mentioned the first bullet also of, a lot of Mike's work is dealing with these businesses, engaging them. So a lot of that effort can go into this section.
Focus on the events is really a response to what we see as far as the traffic on things that are open the most, things what people are talking about, but also requests from individual business owners periodically throughout the year. Somebody might request to promote their event twice. Somebody might ask us to make them their own special email and promote it 17 times and to run it over the course of 3 months. And I think that if we can create some guidelines as to how we will be supporting these events, it'll be a lot clearer for everybody and the business owners themselves.
And then we switched a category to updating the county maps. I know there's always been a lot of requests to get these maps. Up until this year, there were still a ton left. So this would be matching the new design for the new branding to those maps, as well as producing them so that we have those on file for foreseeable future. Continue to host educational events. So we want to try to do 2 of these. One could be Meeting of the Minds, which is a general business event. Another could be an STR meeting. We actually had conversations with Peak Output Events. His name's Keith Van. I can't say his last name exactly, but he's done a lot of event organization dating back to when he used to work in the Saratoga Chamber. He's now on his own. So this is exactly what he does. And we want to explore working with someone like that to really try to increase the reach of it, try to get more people in the room, just overall. And then editorial content. We want to start to focus on what people can buy within the county. We've done some campaigns like you saw, some of the top pages, or shopping around holiday season. We've done this, but we really want to try to put more of an effort year round to exposing people to what can be bought or purchased within the county. So developing articles for that. And then the last changes is an STR campaign. So with the increased interaction with STR owners and operators, we want to continue to show them support. We want to feature them. We acknowledge that it's tough to do a very formal video shoot at every single one of these, having people there, it's a little too much work at times. So we want to focus on more photo, short form videos where you can show up, engage with the owner, be there for a couple hours, take photos and quick videos that can be used on social media, maybe uniqueness of the property, those sorts of things. Quarterly blogs about unique places to stay this fall. You can center those around the typical activities and call it maybe trails that have an event, as well as some specific social ad campaigns that promote the unique places to stay within the county. New directory functionality. This was the one that previously used to be just to build in an itinerary builder for users so they could kind of save different business listings and print it out and share it. We're actually going to update the entire directory to include that. So it'll be an updated, call it interface for those. And then on the county merchandise, originally there was a thoughts and discussion of providing goods to owners of SDRs, bed and breakfast, whatever that is, of could be coffee that's roasted in the county. There's a lot of logistics and a lot of work to keep that up to date and replenished. So we tried to shift this a little bit to more products and merchandise that will be sort of staples and could stay there, for a longer time, as well as some things like pins, window stickers for businesses to display, as they're part of, say, Washington County Tourism. It could be a whiteboard for SDRs that has the Wi-Fi password on it. I know a lot of Airbnbs I've stayed in, it's common that they have something like that. Put a QR code on there, goes to the events page, they can see what's happening in their area that weekend while they're here. Updates to the binders and collateral as needed. And also we want to make a point of trying to source locally within the county when possible for any of these production items, just to really, keep it local, make it unique, and not just say, hey, we go to some big box brand to print out all these things. I think that was the, last update to the ARPA funding budget. This was actually a man who requested a visitor's guide from Germany. We thought that was pretty unique and interesting to see the reach of the campaign, him finding it and requesting one. So just wanted to call that out, that they're coming from even more than some of the areas that we're specifically targeting for neighborhoods. And here are just some of the relationships of different organizations that we've continued to either engage, work with, share content with, those sorts of things. That's it. So are there, questions, comments?
Is developing an map for Washington County's map out of the budgets that you have? Because I see more and more even people my age are turning to Siri and Google and whatever. I don't want to quote out that old fashioned map that we've developed over the years. It's really, really nice, but it'd be interesting to see if it was in our budget to develop an app that could then also interact, so now I have the Washington County app, right? That has the map, and the map has these waypoints on it now, right? So I have the fiber tour can just be a, part of the interaction with the app. I know they can go from, 5,000 to 500,000, where would we kind of fall on that gambit of?
So I think an app itself will be quite expensive to build. I do think that, we've actually done this for other sites where you use Google latitude, longitude, GIS points, and can build an interactive interface for things like each trail. So you could go to the fiber trail,
Jump off on the
producers,
website.
see a map of them.
Sure.
So that is something that's much easier than building out.
And I think that the app approach, while valuable in maybe a specific niche, like when we ran the fall campaign, sorry, every time. Like for example, last year we utilized an app called Beer Advocate, and that featured like all of that different information. It's something that people who love craft beer and visit all of these places through the country catalog what they're doing. But those apps will cost tens of thousands of dollars. They need to be updated. I personally, and it's not about me, but the apps require updates, which will then become more expensive over time. They load onto somebody's phone. And I think a larger viewpoint here would be the broadband campaign, because those apps will heavily require connectivity in order for somebody to use them efficiently and not get frustrated. And that's where the lead back into the paper map has some value to it. So we can simulate that experience on the website. But I think that the app approach may be a big spend for maybe not that much.
Just thinking of a digital way to get that same paper copy, not in paper, out to people.
Yes.
So Al, I can also point out, so the map that we have right now was pretty expensive to produce. It's also, it's a big scale map.
Right.
And
then
we
distribution.
continue to, well, no, we don't, we actually, they're distributed out to communities. We don't spend a lot of money distributing them, but part of the reason that they continue to be very popular is cell coverage. So people who are like traveling sort of into the middle of the county where there is no cell coverage, people typically want maps. But what we are trying to do is reduce the size of the map so that it'll be less costly to print. But we've had conversations about that over the last couple of years, that on the one hand, yes, almost everybody uses their Garmin or their Google, except when they can't. So the idea of the map, we're trying to get the cost of it down, but still produce it, use it as an opportunity to, market and create links back to the website, et cetera. the lack of cell phone coverage is a big, as well as the cost, is a big inhibitor to using online resources for directions. Lakes to Locks actually tried to do something similar. That was more like a history tour that connected an app to a location. Here's a roadside marker. You can read about the history. They spent years trying to get it developed, and ultimately, I mean, there were a few reasons, but it's dependent on technology that isn't available everywhere it needs to be. So.
And I think a good way to reference back to some of the efforts that we did is that the fall flannel campaign was one of the most sought after and viewed pages on the website, but the actual submissions of somebody scanning something and entering themselves, like we had great feedback from the operators, but the amount of participants that took their phone and entered something was much lower. And Dave at Hicks made a great point to us saying that people couldn't really connect to the app based off the Wi-Fi that was there.
So it was a struggle at Hicks. If you've been to Hicks, obviously it's almost like a dead zone there. So he was challenged in that the engagement part of that specific event for everybody to be able to go and do what they were expected to do and trying to do, they just couldn't accomplish it.
Give it back.
What else? We would love to be able to address any and everything here in person.
What time is real spring gonna come?
It's been flirting
3
here.
weeks.
Laura, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Last winter, you guys shot some snowmobile footage up on Rock City Road in Kingsbury. Whatever became of that? Was it used on anything?
I think it was just photos.
Okay.
So we've used them in some campaigns. There was no video attached to
No
that.
video?
And honestly, the snow coverage at that point,
It was not good.
all the grass was peeking
It's
through.
not
It's
good.
not ideal. Yeah, we had a whole video, winter video specifically lined up. We've had to scrap every single one of our event shoots for that because the winter hasn't cooperated. Starting in early February when it was 20 below zero to now there's just no snow anymore. So we're not able to capture that ideal winter footage right now.
But you are open to doing snowmobile video.
Absolutely.
That'd be great. Thank you.
And it is a big effort because we have to reach out with each party involved, have a conversation, set up a time, and then there's no snow,
Oh,
no
yeah.
video,
I'm aware of
leftover
that.
money in the budget.
We appreciated that snowmobile group that we worked with. I think it was Barnstormers. It was like 10 below zero, no snow, but they still gave it a valiant effort for us. But the pictures just weren't right.
Well, plus if you're out in the fields. But I do. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't go anywhere yet because we still have to talk about budget.
Fair enough.
Let her rest.
Okay, so just to recap, so what Black Dog just presented was the typical $200,000 a year budget for our regular tourism programming, which has been in place for, I think, the last 3 years at this point. And you may recall that the ARPA funding consisted of a set aside of $600,000 that we then did a presentation last year for very specific activities. And we moved $225,000 into the tourism budget to fund those activities. So the presentation that you saw about ARPA was simply a continuation of what we started working on last year with a few adjustments. The discussion last year was that we were going to take whatever we did not spend of that $225,000 budget, move it into the tourism budget for this year. And then as we had additional things that we wanted to do with the tourism budget, we would then potentially ask to move some of the remaining balance of $375,000. So my request to the committee is we have unspent ARPA funding of $132,969.58 from the original 225. I'd like to move that into because it doesn't automatically roll over. So I would like to ask that it get moved into the tourism budget to finish off for this year.
So just to carry forward 22 to 23.
Yes, sir. It'd be appropriate to fund balance, but that's where it closed.
That's what I went to anyway. Right. Moved by Jay, seconded by Dave, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Okay. So next thing on the tourism budget is, you may recall that we had such phenomenal response once we put those haunted history guides out. We created a new budget line item for postage just so that we could track what we were mailing out. And we only put $700 in the budget because we had no way of knowing how much we were actually going to need because we hadn't done this before. So the tourism postage account is $549.98 short. So we will have spent a total of about $1,300 in postage, which represents us direct mailing out 2,400 visitors guide. So far, we have not really set aside any postage budget to mail out the rack cards. We could mail out a few of them, but if we had requests for huge quantities of them, that's a budget item that we'll have to think about later. Right now, that $1,500 budget that's in there for this year, we're just anticipating is for visitors guides. But what we are short for the 2022 program year is $549.98. So I can take that out of the planning budget. Al, we didn't really kind of come up with where we were going to move that from, but in order for you to be able to close the account out, we need $540.
So ultimately, it'd be up to the board and the budget officer, as long as there's enough money, contingency would be my preference.
Okay.
If there's
With finance,
moving
okay,
2022 budget,
2022 budget contingency to cover the postage shortfall.
this, please.
Sam, Jay? All in favor? Opposed, carried.
And one final thing on the budget. When we set up the tourism budget this year, we estimated the funding that was going to come in for I Love New York. The actual funding is, so the estimated amount that we put in, which was actually same as last year, was $48,207. What the actual remittance from I Love New York will be, or actually as we just got the money, is $47,187. So we need to adjust the tourism state aid for tourism promotion line item down to $47,187.
That's the revenue line for,
So what I'm going to ask the board is, this is kind of a philosophical choice for you. Because for the fiscal end, I don't care if you touch it. It will just mean that if she spends all of the money you gave her, an additional $800 will be county share rather than state share.
right,
So it's dealer's choice for the board. You can leave her budget alone.
we don't need to amend it, really.
You don't have to, no. But if you want to take the $800 away from her expense line, that would be the only reason you would want to reduce the revenue line. So if you want to leave her expense line alone, I say let it ride, and it's $800 a county cost. That's
Right.
Deal with it in December if we have to.
It's, yeah, it's
Break them
dealer's
down.
choice for the board.
I'm just making it clear.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you bringing it, because I mean, it is their ultimate
Yep.
decision. So
Okay, so that's all I got for budget changes.
Okay. How about anything else in tourism?
I don't have anything.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Appreciate the time.
Broadband updates?
Can you say gives me a headache? All right, so just to let you know where we are, we have talked about the fact that I am working on getting an RFP issued to the existing broadband service providers that are operating in the county. The process to do that is time consuming. We have, through our GIS, we created a map with layers where I've essentially got where existing infrastructure is. We secured through signing away my life and license agreements, FCC data that indicated which broadband providers are claiming to be able to serve what. We have secured state data, that's the state's understanding of what is served and what is unserved. We have secured some data directly from the providers. And then we also have taken a look at where the allocation of the original Broadband for All programming was allocated geographically across the county. Unfortunately, even with all of that data, it does not agree with each other. So it becomes what I've sort of dubbed the smell test, which is essentially a visual parcel by parcel review of who is claiming what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, and then out of that review will come the final list. And I am hoping that we are going to be finished with the review process at some point in the next couple of weeks, and then can start working on finalizing the RFP, which we had agreed at committee that Roger and I will work on. So on top of the ARPA funding set aside, I think I've mentioned before, we were awarded through congressional directed spending through Congresswoman Stefanik, $1 million. So the way congressional directed spending works is the funding that they allocate to you, your funding award gets assigned to a particular federal program. In this particular case, that $1 million was assigned to the USDA Reconnect program, which would not have been my first choice, because the reason that we could not get any providers to submit a USDA Reconnect application last August was because it was too complicated even for the providers to deal with. So the good news is what it is being dubbed as is a pilot program. So we are not going to be subject to all of the rules and regulations that the standard federal USDA Reconnect program has. However, there is right now one rule that is the first stumbling block that we have to get past. And essentially that is that so the award is to the county and the providers are considered co-partners. The providers are going to be required to sign a lien agreement that's a pretty substantial lien against their own assets in order to be able to participate. So I know nationwide, providers like Comcast and Charter have refused to sign those agreements. I've got some of the providers looking over the legal language right now so that they can make a determination as to whether or not they're going to be able to sign those agreements. Because if they cannot sign those agreements, we're stopped because the program requires it. So once we get past that, the other things that I think would have been a stumbling block from the regular program will not apply. But if we can come up with a solution for how to make sure that we've got the partners to agree to a liability that makes sense and that satisfied USDA, then we should be able to move fairly quickly. It also makes the process a little bit more complicated because it means that I'm going to have to specifically allocate once we choose the partners and the specific addresses that are going to be served. I'm going to have to then allocate $1 million out of that funding to the specific partner and then follow a set of rules for that $1 million that's different than what we will follow to finalize the ARPA money. So I just want to point out, this is a complicated process. We are working as fast as we can, overcoming hurdles as quickly as we can. But there's still work to be done before we're actually going to start seeing providers able to make new connections. One of the things that I also want to point out is by federal standards, new fiber connections are being targeted, or new internet broadband speed connections are being targeted at speeds of 100 symmetrical, which is 100 by 100. One of our partners in the county that is able to get to a lot of sites that might not make sense for actual strung fiber is Hudson Valley Wireless. So their standard speed is 200 by 20, which the preferred federal definition is a minimum of 25, but I've talked to USDA. USDA will accept that. It meets federal broadband provider standards, so we will be able to use that. Starlink, however, is no longer considered federally eligible for broadband speed internet because Their speeds are averaging, as of last year, like between 80 to 100 download and then 10 to 15 upload. So one of the things that we will look at is in subsidizing the providers to get these new connections is to pay for a portion of the cost to string the fiber, or in the case of a provider that has the like Hudson Valley Wireless, then that would be to subsidize the equipment costs that go to the homeowner are a little bit more, or I think it's $500. It's very similar to what Starlink was, and then whatever equipment they would have to deploy. The second thing that also applies to the USDA Reconnect funding is that it requires environmental record review, which potentially, if we had to do seeker on every mile of fiber that was buried, would be another major impediment. However, if you're a fixed wireless provider like Hudson Valley Wireless and you're putting things on an existing tower, it would be exempt. So all of these things are sort of saying that if we can sort of create a partnership and a set aside for the federal portion of the money on somebody that would be exempt from seeker and is not going to, it will fulfill the other regulations, it's going to be simpler to target one provider in partnership with those funds than it would be with trying to have lien and liability issues with 5 different providers. So watch that space. We're still working on it. I am just here to say it's not an uncomplicated thing to be working on.
Just one question, wasn't there more funds available from the federal government other than the USDA? Would they bring up some other funds from their programs they supposed to?
So the way that works is that the federal government, through the Jobs and Infrastructure Act, yes, is funding, I think it was $65 billion, if I recall correctly, that is being allocated to the different states. The way the funding is being allocated is based on a formulaic allocation based on unserved. The unserved is based on the mapping process. The mapping process, federal to state, doesn't agree. So the first thing that they have to do is they have to get their maps to align. Once the maps align, the federal government will then tell the state how much the state is getting. The state then has to roll out those programs. This is why I have been saying for the past 2 years that if we wait for the state to do this for us, it's going to be years. Because they've got to go through the planning process, the licensing permitting process, and then the deployment process. So we should be well ahead of that, even with some of the stumbling blocks created by USDA. In addition to the automatic formulaic allocation, programs like USDA Reconnect are getting more federal money, and not NISTIA, but the National Institute of Science and Technology is also getting a direct allocation. So there will be other competitive grants that could be applied for. But again, we tried that last year, and because of those programmatic requirements, couldn't get any of their providers to want to partner. So yes, there is potential, and I hear this from a lot of people. There's an impression out there that right now New York State has a whole bunch of money. New York State does not have a whole bunch of money. It hasn't been awarded until the mapping process finishes. They will, but we're some distance off from that. Any questions about broadband?
No.
Solid waste?
Are you solid waste, or Roger solid waste, solid waste?
That would be
Through planning?
it. So yes, Pamela's here to answer any questions because she has worked her heart out on this. So there are a number of action items that were emailed to everybody with the agenda. If you want copies of them, I have them here. All right, so here's more if anybody wants it. So, as you are aware, because it has been before this committee several times at this point, New York State requires all counties to have a solid waste management plan. We are in the position where the county does not own responsibility for the solid waste stream because it has all been privatized. We had many discussions with DEC, and the requirement stands that even if we don't own responsibility for the waste stream, we are still required to come up with this plan. So the process is, we undertook to develop the plan because we were trying to save the county quite a bit of money. We've got estimates of about $50,000 to develop it. And we sort of thought it was going to be simpler than it turned out to be by virtue of the fact that we don't have control of that solid waste stream. So the process is the plan gets developed, it comes to this committee, the committee approves the draft, which is currently sitting out on the county website. Once the committee approves the draft, it goes back to DEC for their comments. And then DEC tells us to release the plan for public comment. And then once public comment is addressed, we make changes and alterations to the plan, review it again, and then ultimately intention is that it gets adopted by the board. And there's a seeker in there as well. So far, the plan has been sent to DEC twice, and then they send it back to us and say, we want you to do a little bit more. And in this case, they are actually requiring that we have specific proposed action items, which again, it's kind of tricky when we don't own the responsibility for the waste stream. However, what we have said is that there are things that we can do to encourage reduction in the waste stream. And my direction from this committee and the board has been, we cannot commit to anything that's going to have a cost attached to it. So these are the items that we came up with that we thought that we could reasonably do. I mean, they will have some cost because it's going to require personnel to do some things, but it's not a contracted cost. Essentially, it's informational, what we're proposing. We can update website resources. We can use social media to help encourage recycling and reduction of waste. The other suggestion was there is, in partnership with the LDC, SUNY Adirondack Micro Enterprise Class, we could do things like help make business cases for why reduction of the waste stream and encouragement of recycling could be part of their business operations and analysis. So before I committed to these, I wanted the committee to have a chance to review these, tell me if there are any concerns about any of these action items. Otherwise, these will go into the plan. The plan will go back to DEC for review, and they will either accept or they will send it back for a third time and ask us to make more changes. So are there any concerns about any of these items or any discussion about them?
Apparently not.
Okay, so do we have approval to send this to DEC?
Move it. Sam, second by Dave. All in favor? Opposed? Carry.
Okay, Pamela. That's what I have.
Then we have Washington County Historical Society.
Yes. We came last September, Paul McCurdy at Huntington, Paul at Huntington, president of the Historical Society. I ended up going back through my notes. You asked for certain things, and so I did go back through those and try to answer these questions as much as possible. You asked for members of the committee. I won't read their name. We have 18 presently. You asked for the name of the committee. We came up with, we had a nice suggestion more, but unfortunately, running it by some of our members didn't go that well. So we came up with the name Washington County 250th. Celebrate America's history in your backyard. The reason for that was it's not just the American Revolution, it's 250 years of history in Washington County. That's what we're going I had people, some of our historians that did come to some of our meetings, said, I have no American Revolution history at all, which was not correct. They did have soldiers running through their town at that point, but they did have other history. And that's one of the things we should do. Our mission statement is to identify, share, celebrate, commemorate 250 years of American history. Our procedure for recruitment of committee members, letters, emails have been sent to town historians, historical society, Washington County. The next step will be a newspaper article requesting pictures and information on previous celebrations such as the 200th and 225th for a Facebook account, which is presently being developed. Bylaws will be developed later. We only had 3 meetings. I brought it up. I'd like to have a little bit more of a feeling before they did. So, banking has been taken care of. The Washington County Historical Society has agreed to be the holder of money. The 250 committee is not part of Washington County Historical Society, other than a shelter for money. It's a particular term which you use Matt. I put him on the spot.
Yeah, you just put me on the spot there. We're the sponsor of the financial sponsor for the thing. That's the motion last night. Motion 2023.2-2. It approved the Washington County Historical Society be the fiscal sponsor of the Washington County 250th History in Your Backyard. So the board did approve that we're the umbrella, so the money will go through us. And they'll have a separate account that they take care of every 2024.
We have 5 objectives to the 250th celebration. Number 1, education. The committee will develop programs to encourage learning on a local level. Number 2, we will bring towns, villages, and historical organizations together to celebrate Washington County history and events of the American Revolution. The history fair, axe trail, battle of Fort Anne reenactment has been set up, and I'm sure it will be 2027. The bomb trail, which goes back to Ms. Oswald's talk about the issue with Lakes to Locks. We were the ones who developed that. It is difficult to get that. Jane McCrae, the Allen Family Massacres, that's a suggestion. We're going bus tour through Washington County, actually all the way from the county. And of course, Carlton, Bernie, Washington's trip through Washington County as well. He came up here in 1783. Are all possibilities at that point. We've been in contact with Saratoga County on the Knox Trail, and Paul is heading that up. I'm going to speak for a minute.
Not really. We're supposed to have a meeting really soon this spring. That's all I know.
Okay.
Ticonderoga is basically leading the charge on that. Basically, a lot more funding. Think about several stories.
Okay, but we are in the feed. We are part of that now, which is excellent. The committee will encourage historical markers being placed in periods significant historical events took place when they took place. We will use technology to educate, communicate history, events to commemorate these important events in Washington County. Facebook and website, in the process of developing Facebook. The website's important to us because we will be putting out a calendar which you can go to and put your event on. If you're a town in Washington County, any events that are coming up, we're not only our county, but Saratoga, Warren, Essex. The committee will also encourage not only the celebration of the American Revolution, as well as political, social, economic, military history of Washington County, because it is a celebration of 250. It's development through the Declaration of Independence, what we have become in 2023, 2026. The Facebook site, members of the committee will locate, bring in photos from the 200th and 225th anniversaries. Paul and I were discussing photos that they have. Nat has brought in photos from Whitehall. I'm going to make a trip down to Salem, check the newspapers back at that time period. Certain towns really went all out on this, their parades, celebrations, that type of thing. Those are three that were very strong. Greta Hoxman has agreed to put together a Facebook site to display these photos. The committee agreed to place an article in the newspapers requesting that people send the committee copies of the anniversary photos from previous celebrations and information on it so that we can list it so that people can see what is going on. The committee is requesting that Washington County provide us with $3,000 possible. It's to go stationery, letterhead, envelopes, postage, copy cards, rack cards, which was just discussed, rack card brochure, stuff, events that are happening throughout Washington. Technology website. We're hoping the website as well would be interactive for folks so that they can finding out what's going on. Our next meeting, our meetings are Thursdays, first of the month. Our next meeting is March 2nd, 2023. We meet from 5:30 to 7 p.m. And we do provide refreshments, pizza, sauce. It's dinner time, so we try to make sure we encourage people to come and take our time. Does anybody have a question? I promise Jay would hold.
So quick comment for you on, I know you're developing social media platforms, et cetera. If we can be involved in the conversation, then we want to help in any way possible. But what I will say is that when it comes to a calendar event, right now, the Washington County Tourism website is contracted with Mannix Marketing, who owns the Glens Falls, Lake George, and Saratoga.com websites. So anytime we post an event onto the county tourism calendar, it automatically populates those sites. So if we can work with you, rather than maybe doing a separate calendar, then maybe we can somehow find a way to use the county tourism site so you get more exposure beyond just one website, one calendar.
Sticking in.
Yeah, so definitely, I mean, let's have some conversations about, rather than as you get further down into the plans, if there's things that we can do that make it easier for you, then we will.
Sounds very good.
Right.
Any questions? Good, Laura? Okay. Last person in the room is you, Dave.
It's been a while since I've been to.
Yeah, good to see you.
I don't have anything specific that I was going to bring forward. Just in the next couple of months, we will be doing a phase 1 application, which means there will be a seeker requirement, and that has to be done by the end of May. So I'll be in touch with Mr. Wicks for that.
For some reason, there was something that was coming up about snowmobiles that we were being asked to support.
Okay.
Yes, and it was like, well, you're just gonna send a letter to support it. And I go, well, we should talk to Dave and that group first before we do anything. Is that something on the agenda coming up?
Well, that I was approached by, I think Sue Clayman emailed me about this committee meeting too, and that was going to be an issue. I had seen Bob Henke on another day, and he made that request. He says, we're not doing anything until we hear from you guys. We had a meeting 2 days later, and all the clubs in the county association support this.
Okay.
So I had emailed Bob and told him, go ahead and support the project because the clubs are in favor of it too.
So
Do
just
you
so
recall
I
the projects were?
Yeah, it's the increase to the registration.
Right.
Right, so from 45 to 65 for the club members.
Yeah.
And 100 to the 135?
I think so.
Non-club
I think
members.
that's right for out of state.
And that increase will help the snow clubs.
Oh, yes, definitely.
So we should
by
get a
Snow.
motion out of here to do it, or
I think if
resolution
the
to the
committee
board?
would like to support it, then we can have a resolution taken to the board in support of it.
I'll move it.
Sam? Okay. Discussion? Who's gonna write that resolution? Mr.
My
Hanky,
friend over there.
Mr. Hanky's not here today.
I'm no friend of yours.
Okay, all right.
I'm no friend of you.
Good to hear that. Anything else, Dave?
No, that's it, thank you.
Okay, anything else to come before the committee?
Adjourn.